Hello, everyone. You are listening to the Minding Mind podcast, where we live life with ease, connection, and permission to just be. I'm your host, Evelyn LeVasseur, and welcome back to another episode. Today, I get to sit down with Laura Ordile, and we're going to talk all about mindset, the subconscious, trauma, and change, and wherever else the conversation takes us. I cannot wait for you to hear more, but first, let me tell you a little bit more about Laura. Laura is a mindset mentor and master hypnotist, as well as a professional intuitive and astrologer, and is also certified in LP and more. She uses that technique, she uses that unique combination of skills to help you tap into your own success, opening up your life quickly, easily, and completely. And a great side effect is that you get to hold on to your sanity and soul as you go. She knows that when you change your mind, you'll change your life. And she does that with a mix of practical and the woo in a way that is designed specifically for you. She lives in Montana with her family, where she enjoys the sadly short but amazingly beautiful summers and watches as much sci-fi as possible to make it through the winters. Awesome. Laura, welcome to the show.
Thank you so much. I appreciate it. I'm glad to be here, Evelyn.
I'm glad to hear from you. So, Laura, before we get started and get into all the depth of the knowledge that you have to share with us, tell us a little bit more about you.
Oh, goodness, a little bit about me. I am a mom. I'm a grams. I have all my little animals around me that I love. I enjoy kind of living the life that I'm living right now. And I'm grateful in so many ways for how things have changed for me over the last couple years. I was in corporate for about 23 years and just left it about 2 years ago now, almost 2 years ago. And I get to really focus in on the things that I want to do in terms of being home. I'm helping with my grandson, working in my business, and having fun with life right now. So it's pretty cool.
I love just the comment of saying having fun with life, because so many of us are so stuck in the overwhelm and the discomfort, because the truth is that life can be overwhelming. It really is. But also, like, life can be really beautiful. And I think we need to take more time in those moments. I love it. How long have you been, or have you always been interested in like mindset and subconscious type work? Have you always thought that way, or is this something you kind of just learned later?
Well, I think it's kind of all connected through the years. I've done more on what people would call the woo side with the astrology and the intuition for a long time, probably 20 years almost now. I chose, people laugh at me, but I chose to do something a little bit more practical, what I consider practical, about 4 or 5 years ago. And I stepped into hypnosis at that time and really dug deep into the subconscious and how to make the changes. And I was so thrilled with it because it was like that little magic door that I'd been looking for that could make the changes that were at such a deep level and so much quicker and easier than the ways and the things that I'd been doing, just trying to use my willpower and just trying to do all the things by myself instead of going to basically the boss of my brain and my body to make the changes.
Oh my gosh, that is it. That is the subconscious is the boss. I guess let's start there, right? Like, when we're talking about your subconscious mind, it is all the things that you don't have to think about, all the things that are automated in your thoughts, your behaviors, your actions, your beliefs. How does somebody even begin to start making changes in their conscious life and their conscious thoughts when the subconscious has so much power?
You start by going and having those conversations with the subconscious in whatever way you can. And there are, obviously, I do hypnosis, and I think that's one of the best ways. You go deep, it's quick, it's what I consider easy because you basically get to rest through the process, but it goes to that. But there's other ways. I actually have a fun little color guide that I use to help people start to access the change, to start to access the mind. And it's super fun because we're all around color all the time. And you can set it up so that you're having this conversation with your mind and saying, hey, I need clarity on this issue. I need to get clear on this particular issue. And by using color, The specific color for that is white. You can do a little tiny thing that you do, you start the process, and then every time you go through the day and your mind, then your subconscious is registering white when you see white. And it's like, oh my goodness, we are looking for clarity for her on that issue. Let's go find that for her. So right there, you started the process of moving into what you want to move into.
I love
So
that. So it's like focusing on the color, almost tricking the subconscious into bringing like a focus to a particular area, like almost silencing the other noises.
yeah, it does. It's like when you get a car that's, a particular, then you see the car everywhere. So you're accessing your subconscious and saying, maybe it's communication. You really need to work on communication in whatever way, with your business, with your relationship, with whatever it is. And you're like, I want to do better in my communication. I want to access that. I want to amplify that. That's the color green. And it's also around growth and new life and things like that too. But if communication right there, which is the foundation for life, basically, you go and you do this. It's basically 2 minutes. You do what I call an activation meditation, which sets the intention. It just says, I'm bringing in better communication. I want clearer communication. I want to be able to communicate better. And I'm activating the color green for that. And then what you do is you go and you choose an anchor. And it can be a shirt. It can be, I love to use flowers. Flowers are so much fun because they're beautiful. You love them and you're going to look at them a lot. And so you choose an anchor and you put that somewhere in your house. It can be, I've used a piece of paper with the color that I'm using, and I just put it where I'm going to walk by it pretty regularly. So then every time you see it, you might have a conscious thought, oh yeah, I activated green. And again, you start thinking about what it is that you wanted, but your subconscious is going to be activated every time it sees green now.
Mm.
Or maybe set the intention for a week. And so every time you see green, you're going to be going, oh, and sometimes there's a conscious recognition, sometimes not, and that's okay. But what happens, and here's where you have to help yourself just a little bit, you have to be in that awareness that week. So when you do consciously think of it, what else are you thinking of right then? Was there an
Mm.
idea that just popped in your mind? Was there a connection of something? Maybe you keep seeing someone on social media that keeps showing up. Maybe that's a little hint that they're going to help you in some way with that communication process.
Mm.
Maybe you keep connecting with a particular person. That's the awareness that comes into play, because awareness in our life gets overlooked. Awareness changes everything in every way possible. That comment, you don't know till you know.
Yeah.
Think about that. All of a sudden you know something, and your life will never be the same
Yeah.
because you know that something.
Yeah. I kind of, for the people that are open to and willing to acknowledge like subconscious practices, I love this tool that you're saying of using the colors, because I kind of feel like it takes pressure off of, I need to figure this out now. And instead, it's more like, let me shift my focus a little bit and let things come to me more easily without having to force like a, how do I say, it's pulling you out of like overthinking and letting you just be.
Absolutely. Absolutely, because our subconscious is the most powerful supercomputer ever. And it can't be created. Basically, it's there. And the thing is, this is kind of how I've decided to think of the connections and things, but there's all that knowledge out there in the universe. All of the information is out there. And our subconscious is the gateway to that. It allows that information to come in. It goes searching for the information that we ask it to. And then from that subconscious, it comes and channels into our body through our intuition. And I always say our intuition is our first sense, not our sixth sense, because our intuition comes in with that information and then it uses everything around us, what we see, what we hear, what we feel, to give us the information. So basically, we have this amazing process that can happen. And we're stopping it right here by going, I have to make this work. with that conscious mind. We're saying, ooh, I have to dig in, I have to find the answer, I have to do all these things instead of going, oh, I have this access to this information. I have this gateway, this doorway, and all I have to do is open it.
Mhm.
Wow. How simple is that?
Yeah. Do you feel like people need to be at a certain level, I don't know, of growth or in their journey or of acceptance to be able to channel a connection with their subconscious mind? I'm wondering about people who think hypnosis is fake, or people who think that they have no power over their thoughts or beliefs. How do you like bridge the gap and help people see that they have way more power than they think they do?
Well, first of all, it honestly doesn't matter to me whether you believe hypnosis works or not. What I want you to believe is that you need to make change in your life, that you cannot continue to go on the way it is. If you're there, I can get you where you need to be through the process that I do. And when we think about the subconscious, if you think about it as like that supercomputer, there's a hard drive that's in there. And what happens is from even before you're born until you're about 7 years old, there's a foundation that's put into place. So it's like putting all of the root programs into your mind about how you're going to move through the world. It's decided and by all the things you see and experience and all of that. And so from there, all of those things are put in play, and that's how we're going to operate for the duration of our life until we go in and make the changes. Do we continue to add and change? Yes. But for the most part, those things are in there unless you decide to go in and hit delete. So there might be something, a belief that was established when you were 2 years old. And that belief could be, maybe it's around money. It could be when you were 2 years old, your parents had this big argument over money. You didn't even understand the concept of money, but you understood the concept of what was happening, the difficulty. You did actually hear the words because you're absorbing everything, even at that age. You heard those words, your subconscious knows, and it goes, okay, money can be a difficult thing. Look at the arguments that made you feel bad. There was a moment of trauma in your life through that big argument that was established. Okay, now we're going to move you forward in life, but we've got that little piece of coding that we're going to put in your mind. So then you establish beliefs based on that through your life. Ooh, we don't want to talk about money. It could bring arguments. Ooh, that's a bad thing. Or maybe in that argument you kept hearing, ooh, rich people are bad or something like that. That can be something that's instilled in you that you're not even aware of. I've had that happen in my own life. I started seeing things happen and it's like, wait a minute, wait a minute. And I had to go in and say, okay, what's behind that? What's going on? And I had to change some processes in order for me to move forward in the life that I wanted in a lot of different ways, not just with money, but relationships, with feeling like I'm enough, with knowing that I am who I am and that's okay, that I'm not bad because of this, or I don't need to be shut down because of that, all of the different things that are there. So when we come up against a struggle in our life, and maybe it's something that's been there all your life, maybe it's anxiety that could have been established because of one of those little traumatic moments way back when. Because we have traumatic moments all along our life. Maybe we don't think they are. It's just life. We just had our life. But it could have been that little tiny version of you that established it as a traumatic moment. And then let's say you go to school, which can be traumatic in itself. The first
Yeah.
time you go into school, you're all of a sudden you're separated from your life and your family and all that. And I know someone who that was a very traumatic incident in their life that established things throughout their life. Even if you're okay going to school, maybe you have a bully that shows up when you're 7 years old. You have this other version of you now that's going to get created because our subconscious is always going to protect us. Job number one, protect you. And so what it does is it creates this little version of you in those moments that goes, I've got you. I'm going to protect you. You're going to be okay. And that little version comes out and you're able to move on. So it's like the little Russian dolls, the nesting dolls, one in
Yeah.
the other. We have that in ourself,
Mm.
all in there. So one of two things happens. You have that little version of you that was hurt,
Mhm.
and they're going, okay, I'm going to live in anxiety now. And so you establish this part of being in anxiety or anger or depression, whatever. A lot of food issues can come from that point. But what happens is that goes throughout your life. That's how you experience life. So you don't think it can be ever any different. The second thing that can happen, somewhere along the line, you have this other traumatic event that happens and it kind of breaks right there. Now you have something that's shown up that you never dealt with before. That's where you see PTSD really come in. See PTSD, things like that. All of a sudden I have anger. All of a sudden I have health issues. I have IBS. I have migraines. I have chronic fatigue, fibromyalgia, whatever it is, depression. You have all of these things you withdraw from society. Overwhelm. Oh my gosh, I'm so overwhelmed with everything. And then you freeze because you can't even think of what step is next. And it's like, oh my goodness, what do I do? And so with all of those little things that have happened, what's happening is this little version of you is stuck in that traumatic moment and it's upset. And it you can think of this of two ways too. I always love to say, because I'm a dog person, I would love to describe it as a puppy. When you get a new puppy and it wants attention, it wants attention, it wants attention. If you don't give it attention, it's going to go off and chew up your shoes and
Mm.
pee on your carpet and do all the bad things. But if you give it attention, you're going to have this lifelong friend right there with you. Does that make sense?
Yeah, totally. It totally makes sense. It also makes sense to me to hear the difference between what we would, I guess, categorize as like little traumas throughout life and like a major trauma that causes that disrupt and brings that like PTSD type reaction. Because from what you're describing, our subconscious mind doesn't have a pattern of forming that comfort yet when you have that big traumatic moment. So now your body literally has no idea how to deal with it.
Yeah, it's like throughout life, if you think of like a walnut and we're the walnut, things get added onto that walnut, little
Yeah.
slabs, whatever. And so if you have something throughout your life that your mind decides is a trauma, maybe it's that argument when you were 2 years old, but for that 2 year old, that was traumatic. A slab is added on top of the walnut. Maybe
Mhm.
some people have less slabs, so it takes longer maybe, and then all of a sudden this one big thing happens and it squishes the walnut,
Mhm.
cracks the shell. That's how we kind of go through life. But when that shell, when it's enough, when your mind has said that's enough, it's going to go, okay, we're going to fix this right now. We're going to fix this. And you are going to pay attention. And it can do that through emotional, mental, or physical. Because, like you said in the beginning, our subconscious is running everything, our breathing, our digestive system, all of that. So it can disrupt that. And another way to think of it, as we've all been teenagers, or if you're living with a teenager, if you have an upset teenager, cranky, wanting attention, and it's up there in the control center, driving the bus, deciding what's going to happen, doing all the things, it can probably bring on some pretty difficult things, like it or not.
Mhm.
And that's the things that often are experienced in PTSD, in trauma. But sometimes people don't recognize it as, oh, I'm having, all of a sudden I have IBS. Everything's changed. This showed up. I don't know what's happening. But then it's like, okay, I have to learn to deal with this. No, you don't. No, you don't. Nor do you have to deal with and manage and find ways around anxiety, stress, all of these things that are there. If you are having panic attacks or anxiety to the point that someone has told you, here, you have to have these coping mechanisms. You're going to have to deal with it for life. Just find a way to manage it. there's something in the subconscious that wants attention. Go in, deal with it. You won't have to manage it for your life. Will you still have emotions? Will you still have anxiety now and then? Absolutely. What I do does not nullify life for you, because life is emotions. We are meant to experience them all. It's like this roller coaster. And you have fear on a roller coaster, right? You're, oh my gosh, it's so scary at certain moments. You're going to have that fear. But the next part can be so exciting and so fun. And then you're going to have the relief, and you're going to have that little moment. What happens sometimes is we get stuck at that little bottom low point in that roller coaster ride, where all of a sudden, all we feel is anxiety. All we feel is sadness. All we feel is overwhelm.
Mhm.
We're in the puddle. We're in the little low part where we just can't seem to get moving again, because our emotions are meant to move and flow through us. We're meant to acknowledge them, come into that awareness, and feel them, but
Mhm.
not for the duration, ever,
Yeah. Yeah.
ever.
It's just, I love the idea that we just fully acknowledge, or need to fully acknowledge, that feelings are not something that we have to run from, right? Like I can say myself, I hid from any feeling that didn't make me feel good. And if I felt something that didn't make me feel good, like sadness, or, wanting to be more vulnerable, or feeling like I needed to cry, I met those with instant judgment and guilted myself and shamed myself for feeling those things. Almost like I was judging myself if I didn't always feel happy or excited, right? So I wouldn't even acknowledge that those other feelings are just a normal part of the human experience. And the fact that, how can I possibly be grateful for all the things that are beautiful in my life if I don't acknowledge the parts that were difficult? So I love,
Absolutely.
like, just going in that full range and allowing yourself to feel it all, but not, I guess, to recognize that feelings are temporary always.
Yeah,
And
always. It's a
yeah.
flow. It's supposed to be a flow where they come in, we feel them, they move on their way. And
Mhm.
then the next ones come in and we feel them. And it's an energetic flow, is what
Yeah.
feelings, and they do get stopped and they do get stuck. But the difference is that when you're in the state of the difficult side of it, in that little lower dip where you're kind of stuck in that one emotion, you cannot feel okay
Mm.
at your center, because you're in that emotion too deep. It's kind of filled up everything inside of you. And when you are able to get out of that and you're in the flow and in the movement of the energy, you will have this space inside of you, this little core that says, no matter what's going on out here, I'm okay. I'm safe. This is going to move on. It's okay. So it might be, we all have experienced in the past where a bill shows up in our life. And it's like, oh no, I wasn't expecting that. It's bigger than I wanted. How am I going to do that? But what happens when you're not in a good space, when you're not in that flow of energy and that flow of emotion, is that feeling anchors in. Fills us up. It stays. We're awake at night thinking about it. We're frustrated. We don't even know what step to take. So much overwhelm. It's like we're in this mire and muck and all of it right there, right? The difference is when you're in the right way of it, when you're in the emotional flow of it, you're still going to have that feeling that comes in. Oh no, dang, upset, angst, anxiety. How am I going to pay it? All of that's there. And then you go, but okay, how is this going to be okay? What am I going to do to make it okay? What resources can I turn to? How's it going to be managed? And then you move forward. You're not stuck in that mire. You're not stuck in the overwhelm. You start to flow forward. You still have maybe some of the anxiety because you got to find the money somewhere. Yeah, that's a normal emotion. That's a normal way of being. People don't get that sometimes fear is normal. Sometimes anxiety is normal. And oftentimes those things kind of come into play. And here's where the awareness comes in. You start to feel, ooh, I'm feeling a little anxiety, I'm feeling a little fear. But if you can stop in that moment and go, that's interesting. What's that about? Which way do I want to take it? And do I really need to go into fear? Do I really need to go into anxiety? Do I really need to go into interesting, maybe exciting, different? Very different ways of moving your thoughts into a whole new way of going in a whole new direction. Try that. The next time you start to feel those feelings come in and go, that's interesting. What's that about? Where do I want to go with that? And see, is it interesting? Is it different? Is there something new showing up in my life? Is that a little scary or is that a little exciting? And when you can do that, you will automatically feel the shift that takes place. And that's a really key, simple thing that everybody can do in the moment.
Yeah. So it sounds like to me this idea of being able to change, right? Like from what you're saying, it sounds like obviously the very first step that you mentioned is being aware that you need to make a change, right? And then recognizing that your subconscious thoughts are kind of in the driver's seat the majority of your life. And then being able to feel what you're supposed to feel, acknowledge that it's there for a reason, and get curious, right? Get curious about what those feelings are telling you. So if somebody were really looking to make some massive change in their life, whether it be in habits, whether it be in how they feel about themselves, whether it be in how they relate to other people, once you get to that point of you're past the awareness, you're fully comfortable with the idea that your subconscious is leading your life, what steps do you start to take to make those thoughts become a new reality?
Well, one of them is to anchor men through the subconscious work that I do, like NLP, like hypnosis. And to me, that's a lot like when I found hypnosis, one of the ways I describe it is as working in our lives. We want change, and change is like over on the other side of that mountain, right? That's how we sometimes see it. Oh my gosh, it's going to take so much, it's going to be so, and then you start climbing the mountain and it's so hard and it takes forever and you're doing all these things but you're only making this much progress. Going to the subconscious mind is like this little secret door to a tunnel that goes underneath the mountain to the other side. You don't have to do all of that stuff. Does that mean you're not going to have to do some of the work along the way? No, that means that there is a much simpler, easier way to get where you want to go. And when you're there, it's like all of the clutter has been cleared out of your way. The difficulties are not there. And now you can really make the choices and move forward. You're not going to have the start and stops along the way. You're not going to have those invisible blocks that a lot of people say, I'm doing all the things, I'm not getting anywhere, or I don't even know the first step to take, so I'm just not going to take anything. You're not going to feel that way because we've cleared the path, and you get to choose now all of the new ways to go. And because hypnosis is not just about clearing the things, it can be adding in like that. I'm going to use the computer reference again. We all sometimes put new programs in there to do easier, quicker things, to speed things up, to make it easier for ourselves. We can do that with hypnosis too. We can add in motivation. We can add in path to clarity. We can add in confidence, worthiness. All of those feelings can be amplified through the subconscious. And so you feel good about the next steps that you take. And you do have to take the next steps. You're never going to get anywhere if you don't start taking a step. And I hear a lot of people say, I'm waiting for a sign. I'm waiting for the universe to make that, show me the way. The universe is sitting right next to you, waiting for you to get up and take the next step.
That is so true. That is so true. I think so many people believe that manifestation is this woo thing where your desires drop in your lap. And and the truth is that manifestation comes from belief and action, right? So I love that. Someone who is looking to potentially make this change and they're open to NLP and they're open to hypnosis, what does that process look like for them? Are we talking about like multiple sessions? Are we talking about sessions combined with action steps? Like, what does working with you look like?
Working with me, if my base type of work that I do is I call it the overhaul.
Mhm.
And it is about a 6 to 7 week program. I used to do single sessions, but I always ended up doing more because I felt like we needed to, and I wasn't getting the results that I wanted in those single sessions. So oftentimes, though, within 1 or 2 sessions, people do have the breakthroughs, do have the change that happens for them in those couple of sessions. That's great. Absolutely wonderful. We found in the work that I do and in the groups that I've done that 6 to 7 session mark, usually 6 or less, really is where everyone comes through all of those because that's based on like a really deep PTSD, complex PTSD trauma protocol. And I want that to clear all of the symptoms. I'm not going in to say, okay, we're going to do this session. We're going to clear your anxiety. Then, okay, that once we've done that, we're going to clear the sleeplessness, the insomnia. I'm going at it all right there. I mean, I literally worked with someone the other day who had 17 symptoms, deep symptoms, insomnia, hypervigilance, anxiety, panic attacks, IBS, all of those things. And after we finished that 6th session, all of those things were gone.
Wow.
So
Is
that's the work
um
that I do.
is this work also effective in like children?
Yes,
Yes.
absolutely. Yes.
Amazing. Amazing.
Yes. And unfortunately, especially through some of the recent years we've been through, a lot of kids have been struggling, have been having anxiety come up, anger issues, really kind of having all the different things that they I'm not going to say talk therapy doesn't have a great place in society, but sometimes there's something that's needed outside of that. We all need people to talk to, and when you're in that position, go do that, absolutely. But if you're in a position where you have this thing that keeps stopping you or that's showing up out of the blue or something like that, there are better ways. I find that hypnosis is that better way. And so especially with kids, I am I'm going to tell you a quick little story with my mentor. My mentor worked with this little child, and the little child was getting diagnosed with all of these really deep, difficult personality disorders. And the mom knew my mentor and said, can you try? Can you work with him? Because he was angry, he was having these issues, he was upset, all of these things were coming out of this. And I think he was 5, 6 years old. He wasn't very old, he was little. And she said, sure. And she went over and talked to him, and just through the conversation, there were some comments that were coming from this little child that were a little scary about what was happening and why it was happening and all of these things. And she's like, oh goodness, what did I step into? But she said, okay, well, and she kind of used a little bit of just the imagery of describing to me what you're experiencing, going through, and kind of some of those techniques. I don't even know if they got to hypnosis with this little one, but just through listening and kind of using some of those techniques that are there, she found out that this little guy had had this connection with another person, a little girl that lived next door, and the family had moved away. And so he was heartbroken. It was this big trauma in his life. He was so angry. It was so upset. But nobody in all of these diagnoses and all this had gotten to the point of saying, what's that about or why that's there? And kind of maneuvering with him in a way that allowed his subconscious to say, this is why all this is happening. And they went and talked to the mom, and the mom was like, oh yeah, I know about the friend, and is there a way to connect, bring it together? And as soon as she said, yes, we'll make a phone call, we'll do this, we'll do that, the little boy was like, all that had cleared.
Wow.
That trauma had been taken on right there, and he was never going to live his life again in the way that he wanted to until that was addressed. Thankfully, at this young age, the mom looked for alternative ways, and it was addressed right there. Otherwise, this little child would have been put on medication to fix these things that really didn't need fixing. He needed to be helped
Yeah.
in a different way. And it
You know,
was,
I feel like you're bringing up such an important point, and I feel like this is an entirely different podcast episode, but with kids, you know, I hear people constantly say things like they're just bad, or, you know, they are XYZ, whatever label they throw on them. And I wish that more people recognize that behavior is just an unmet need. You know, when these behaviors are coming out, there is something that they need that they're not getting. And I feel like curiosity is always going to be more powerful than some diagnoses. Like figure out why they're behaving this way. What is it that they need? What is it that they're not getting? They are screaming for help. They're screaming for help. And we put band-aids on it.
we do. And oftentimes, again, I'm going to go back to awareness, acknowledgement, understanding. And the thing with and I'm going to drag a little bit of my woo into this, but I love when I work with someone through astrology, that's exactly why I do it. Because as an adult, even, we're often at a point where we've been told all our life, you're too much. You are too much, you're too loud, you're too whatever it is. However, if I go in and look at someone's astrology chart and they've got all this fire in their chart, you are exactly who you're meant to be. You are not meant to shut that down.
Yeah.
You are meant to light the world, to say the thing, to be out there. Don't ever let anyone shut that down in you. If you're someone who's been told you're too sensitive all your life, or you cry in a moment, you're all of these things, and I look at your chart and you've got all this water in your chart. You are our emotional connection in this world, and you are meant to show the rest of us how beautiful emotions can be. And if we can look at that and see in a child that that's who they are, and that that's a wonderful part of who they are, and we can accept that and guide that and encourage that and blend that in the best possible way to lean into the best sides of that instead of the difficult ones that can come from being pushed and told you're bad, you're not okay, you can't act that way. You know, if we know that that's who our child is and we can guide them and use that energy in a way that is wonderful, we will have such amazing people in this world
Yeah.
who are great at exactly the reason they're here, moving in their purpose, moving in their own way of being in this world. And it feels good and right to
Yeah.
every.
And I think they even are more accepting of the differences in other people too, when they can acknowledge their own. Because I try to teach my daughters very clearly that should someone say something to you that is negative or tells you you're too XYZ, you know, it is almost always that the thing that you bring reminds them of what they're not, right? Like if you are, I don't know, too loud, there's a part of them that wishes they could speak out. It's just anything that someone says that could possibly be negative about you is just a reflection of the thing that they want for themselves. So yeah, I think absolutely someone being able to acknowledge all the greatness that is them also helps them recognize that in other people too. So it literally is just like minding your business, right? Getting inside, going deep, figuring out who you are, learning to love every part of you because no part of you is a mistake, right? And if everybody lived like that, can you just imagine the the people that we would be surrounded with all the time.
Right? Wouldn't that be amazing? Wouldn't that be
Amazing.
so incredible?
Amazing. Laura, I have to tell you that you are so good at presenting imagery because I am a very visual learner and I was following everything that you said simply with the connection to the bus and the Russian dolls and the walnuts. Like all the things gave me the visuals that I needed to follow, the idea of what our subconscious mind is doing actively all the time. So thank you.
You're so welcome.
Laura, before I let you go, can you tell the audience like where they can follow you or, how they can work with you if they're interested?
Absolutely. They can find me under my name in most places, and it is Laura Ordile. It looks like Ordile. It's LauraOrdile. It's at lauraordile.com is my website. I'm on Facebook, Instagram, and TikTok under my name, Laura Ordile, and they can hop on there. I also actually have my own podcast that's called The Change Gang, and I would love to have you come have a listen to that anytime.
Amazing.
And yeah, that's me.
Awesome. So I'm going to make sure to link everything in the show notes so people can just click away when they're ready to reach out, follow, or work with you. And Laura, before I let you go, there is one question of the hour that I ask everyone. And the question is, how does Minding Yours, the legacy that you will leave?
I think so how does minding mine
Yeah.
impact the legacy I leave? Well, what I want and how I've found life to be is that when I mind my own life and do what I need to do, I am working in the best possible way. I'm finding my way in knowing that even though I might have mistakes or I might have something that someone does decide is a negative trait, I can use that and turn that into work with something in a better way. If
Mhm.
I can lean into the most positive sides of who I am, the negative stuff is going to be minimal. The difficulties are going to be there, but they're going to be minimal and minimized by me continuing to live true to myself, say, I am okay. I am who I am meant to be. And I can help others to find that. And when I move into that purpose in my life of showing people that there is connection between all that's out there and who we are and how to maneuver through that wonderful subconscious mind and other ways, if I can do that, I'm doing good and I'm okay with good.
Yeah, I love that. Laura, I really appreciate you taking the time and talk to us today. I love your spirit, your energy, the way that you are just creating or helping people create a reality that they are just comfortable and content with every day of their lives. Like, that's beautiful. So thank you. And I want to thank everyone else for joining both of us today and tuning into another episode of Minding Mine. If this episode resonated with you, remember to comment, rate, and review the podcast. Your feedback always helps me grow. And until next time, I want you to go live your life on your terms and please mind your business. We'll catch you in the next episode.